Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. The Rubenesque lady was on her way to get on stage and sing the aria at the opera to end the winter, and she stopped off for lunch when she saw a double split in the polar vortex. We're going to have that and more on the long range, which all of a sudden looks blocky and very cold for the middle part of March. In the meantime, it's all quiet on the U.S. front as we have another exciting adventure of the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. Wrapping up for winter, still have plenty of supplies just in case winter does make one final return. But they're also
It will.
yes, and they're also transitioning over to spring. So they have a lot of spring stuff too, so that you can gussy up that front yard of yours and get everything in tip-top shape to be the envy of the neighborhood. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. The telephone number is 631-756-1125, serving the entire tri-state area with the lowest prices around. And the website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
Oh well.
Who did the voice of Little Red Riding Hood in that cartoon? That was not credited.
B. Benaderet.
B. Benaderet. Hey, I've got a little bunny rabbit here to show.
Hi. Hey, Grandma. What big eyes to have.
Do you remember that time when I think you brought it up on YouTube? We were at FiOS. See, this is what we do what we used to do at news gathering agencies like FiOS One. We brought it up on YouTube, and Ralph, who was what was Ralph's title? Operations manager?
Yeah, I think that's what you would call him.
And
God bless him. He was wonderful.
And starts watching. And the three of us are like gathered around, and we're all doing the same thing.
Oh, yes. Well, I always found a way to keep things creative for work. So I know that Tom Contino's on the chat board, and he's probably busting out now with his rubber band theory about whether when it's calm, if it stays calm for a long time, it'll end up with a storm someplace, which is actually, there's a certain amount of logic to that, and a lot of science to that too. But yeah, I looked, Joe, very interesting, the last four runs of the GFS, we're going to show it, of course, but the last four runs of the GFS have gone from showing one split in the polar vortex, which is going to happen late this week, the first one, and then the second one, a second one that happens right behind it, and that is a much more powerful split. It sets up some, makes some changes in the teleconnections. I'm just going to say right off the bat, I always like to see at least several runs in a row do something. It's lend it some credence, and it kind of does make some sense. That big polar vortex has to go away soon, and it has to weaken somehow. So that's one part. The other part of this is I don't know if it's going to ultimately lead to anything other than maybe another stretch of colder than normal temperatures, but it is rather interesting that we're going into the middle of the month, and one of the other things I want to look for is there were some hints on some of the members of the teleconnections today that go in that direction, but not all of them are on board. So over the next couple of days, I want to see the teleconnections start to show the NAO actually going at least to neutral, if not negative, and the PNA, the Pacific North America Index, going at least back to neutral from negative, if not positive. But we'll see. But last couple of days we were pulling teeth. We actually have something to look at today.
Just like in those old grade B movies from the 1940s and 50s where the detective says, It's quiet. It's too quiet. And that indeed is what is happening right now. It is a very quiet week. Yeah, we have these little disturbances, a shower here, a snow flurry there, a little heavier amount up in the higher terrain area. But I mean, no big deal. This week is going to be just kind of ho-hum. But exactly what you just said, Joe, as we move toward and we've been talking about this now for the last couple of days, we get toward the middle of this month, and things are going to start to change. Things are going to start to flip. And I did see on both the GFS and the European in that time frame from about the 9th or 10th of March or thereabouts, the potential of some kind of a coastal system that will be revving up and posing a threat to our part of the country, believe it or not.
Yeah,
That's a week from now, folks.
yeah. Well, I'm not 100% sure about that one yet, but again, it's something to look at, and with other things going on in the
It's the
atmosphere.
beginning.
Yeah,
The beginning.
we certainly didn't think that the whole month of March was going to go quietly. I mean, at least nationwide. Maybe we would be in the quiet part, but somebody would be getting a big storm someplace. And by the way, none of this is any guarantee that anything is going to happen, either from the standpoint of it getting very cold, or for the winter weather lovers, or in terms of storminess, because we all know what happens when you see stuff in the long range. 99 times out of 100 on the next run, it's different, and depending on what time frame you're looking at, it could be completely gone. So don't be surprised if both things happen in subsequent runs. David Fuller is our first super chat hit of the night. Thank you, David.
Yep.
And welcome to everybody on the chat board. Any questions or comments, just leave them there, and Joe Ray will be monitoring the chat board with his usual vigor. And well, yeah, he's going to be monitoring the chat board, and he'll share the questions or comments as we go along. By the way, I also make reference, the old the saying was about the fat lady. The opera isn't over until the fat lady sings, and
Right.
she's not even clearing her throat because she was on her way and she's being detoured. But I have to use the word Rubenesque lady, because if I post it on Facebook with the FAT word as opposed to something else, they will flag it. And
They have strange algorithms, indeed.
oh, somebody put
and
up
they'll see certain words.
somebody I know put up a picture of a pork roast, a pig roast. Okay, roasting
Right.
a pig on a spigot. You know, that's pretty common to do. If you ever go to Hawaii, that's what they do. And apparently the algorithm picked it up as an offensive phrase. So in other words, it didn't pick it up because it's showing, if you wanted to say, okay, it shows animal cruelty. All right, you know what? That's fine. I'm still going to eat it. But it was because the algorithm thought it was making reference to a person's size. And he was put in Facebook jail for 30 days.
I wonder if I posted
Yes.
a link to the song from the 1940s, made famous, by the way, by Arthur Godfrey. I don't want her, you can have her, and I'll stop right there.
Yeah,
but
you'd go to prison for that.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
Exactly. I did post a picture, by the way, when I was on the cruise in Antarctica. One night we had a huge roasted pig, went the full scale with it with the apple in the mouth,
Mm-hmm.
and I took a picture of that, and I posted it on Facebook, and within an hour I got a post from a gentleman. I don't even know where he is. I only heard from him once. And he said, Joe Ray,
Thankfully.
I have such high regard and respect. I have high regard and respect for your meteorological expertise and all of your astronomy knowledge. And he said, but would you please remove that, because it is an insensitive. And he went on to a long dissertation. And I said, all right, I'm not going to get into a debate on my vacation or my time when I'm trying to enjoy myself. So I just took I took it off.
No.
I took the picture. No, I took the picture down, and then I get a message back from the guy saying, he said, thank you very, very much. Your heart is in the right place. And I said, good. I made him happy. That's all. But for the few people who did see it, it
I
was there
I did
for the
not
short
see
time
it.
that it was there.
If you don't like
I'll send it
something,
to you.
if you don't like something, scroll by. Just ignore it. What are we? What are you, a five? Not you, but what is this person? A 5-year-old? If you don't like something that somebody posts, go scroll by. Go to another page. For God's sake.
Yeah, but, I was concerned that I would suddenly hear from hundreds of
Oh,
PETA
oh, you would have.
people, or from
You would have.
and I was stressed out enough, just trying to figure out a way for us to get back through all the COVID and everything else. I didn't need this gigantic collapse of people coming in and you shouldn't post something like that. That poor defenseless little piggy. This
Yeah.
little piggy went to market. That little piggy went home. This little piggy had
No, that
no,
little piggy
no.
went to market
So
and wound up on the table. Here's the
exactly.
yes. Here is the U.S. watches and warnings tonight. We actually have a few more advisories up. We have winter weather advisories up for a number of counties in Montana and also in California in the Sierra Nevadas, but it's still quite lacking across the U.S. And not that there isn't, it doesn't mean it's bone dry everywhere. It's just that the weather systems, as Joe pointed out, were very minor, and we don't have any winter weather advisories up in New England, although there is a minor system that is going to be moving through there tonight. That some areas might even be as far south as Route 84 or just north of Route 84 in Connecticut and in the Hudson Valley. That could see maybe a couple of snowflakes, or perhaps even in parts of Massachusetts and northernmost Connecticut might see enough to whiten the ground, or maybe up to a half an inch to an inch at most. But there it is on the satellite. It really isn't very much. It is, though, a cold front, and I did notice, Joe, the temperatures get. This is a fairly decent shot of cold air.
Yeah.
By Friday morning, I saw most lows are going to be in the teens to near 20, and probably no higher than the upper 20s to mid 30s on Friday. So I know we're skipping a day because we do have tomorrow, but this is going to be a shot of cold air that comes in, and then just as fast as it comes in, it's going to go out ahead of the next round of changes over the weekend.
I said brisk and cold tomorrow night, unseasonably cold. For the Hudson Valley, I've got low temperatures down between 11 and 18, which is about as cold as we've seen in recent days around here. And then for Friday, I said, well, I'm thinking maybe like mid to upper 30s, but there's always some place, maybe down by the Sound Shore, for example, or Yonkers or Mount Vernon, that might briefly touch 40. So I said 35 to 40, much lighter winds, lots of sunshine, and that would be for Friday. And Joe, considering that 2 or 3 days ago, I was thinking that this was going to be a washout of a weekend. Now I'm actually thinking that we may start the day on Saturday with some sunshine,
Yeah,
followed by clouds,
I went the same road.
and then by the time we get to Sunday, that looks like the wetter of the 2 weekend days, and then more wetness coming our way into the start of next week on Monday. But on Sunday, in spite of the fact, because we're going to be going involved with a warm frontal passage, it may very well be that Sunday we may see temperatures as high as the upper 50s and lower 60s, which will feel pretty darn good. I
Yeah,
mean, not great that it's going to be showering, but good.
depending on the warm front and your wind direction, yeah, not impossible. There's some snow on the radar tonight in upstate New York. You see it there. Not all of this is actually reaching the ground. Some of it is, but not all. And most of it's on the light side. It's going to get amplified a little bit as it moves further to the east later tonight when it gets into New Hampshire and Vermont and Massachusetts and northern Rhode Island and northern Connecticut. Boston could wind up with a coating to a half an inch out of this. And then it moves along and moves out. We also have some snow up in the lower peninsula of Michigan, a couple of rain showers scattered around through central Illinois and central Indiana, and also in the northwest. You still got this stream of moisture. I'm just going to go back to the satellite loop, and you can see the stream of moisture coming in from off the Pacific. This hasn't really changed for the last 2 days. It continues to pour in rain into the northwestern part of the country. And as you get further eastward, where the air is cold enough, you wind up seeing it in the form of snow. And that would be in Montana, where they have the winter weather advisories. WPC for tonight, this is the probability of at least 2. And off the lake shore. Now, some of this is going to wind up being a little lake effect after the front goes by. So you can see that area there of 90% probability or higher. What is that? I'm sorry, 80% probability or higher. But the 2-inch probability is, for example, for Boston, is between 1 and 5%. And even for places like Worcester might be more on the right on the 5% line, and the same for Springfield. So that's for 2 inches or more. If they had a choice, if one of the choices were a coating to an inch, then we would probably see 60 to 70% numbers for that, or 50 to 60, something along those lines. But they start off at 2. If I went to the shorter range 6 hourly period, they could bring it down to 1. But 2 inches for me is just about as far as I'm going to extend myself on WPC. And on their long range, for snow lovers, they do have, this is for the period now, Saturday into Sunday. And while we'll be warming up with the warm front pushing through across the upper peninsula of Michigan, through central Minnesota, and down into South Dakota, this is the probability of at least, let's call it the probability of 3. And there, it's the darker blue there is 50 to 70%. It extends some 30 to 50s down into Colorado for Sunday into Monday. And as I'm sorry, that was for Saturday into Sunday. Now for Sunday into Monday, we're seeing some patchy areas of 10 to 30 and 30 to 50 in Colorado and in Utah, and not much else in the west, and a little bit up in the lakes. And you can see up in Maine with that 30 to 50. Moving into Tuesday, they've got a fairly large area of 10 to 30 in upstate New York, northwest PA, Vermont, and interior New Hampshire and interior Maine. And for Tuesday into Wednesday, which is the last day on their forecast period, Tuesday into Wednesday, nothing's coming up, so maybe there is nothing here. Oh, it's all in the west for Tuesday into Wednesday of next week. So that's WPC's view of things. And as far as rainfall is concerned, let's see if we got a fresh map. We should have a fresh one. And we do. So
Is it is it fresh? Woo! Is it?
yeah. WPC has got some 2.5-inch plus amounts showing up along the state lines of Kentucky and Indiana, and Kentucky and Illinois, and Missouri and Illinois, and a fairly large area of an inch plus that goes from the middle Mississippi Valley northeastward into western PA and upstate New York and into New England. Bounce less here. We're on the edge of a half an inch. And then the amounts lower further as you go down the coastal plain through the mid-Atlantic and South Atlantic states. In the west, still showing rainfall from Seattle all the way down to San Diego for the next 7 days. Upwards of an inch plus in San Diego, and in Seattle also upwards of an inch plus, and also some bigger amounts in Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, western Montana, and you know that some of that is going to be in the form of the white stuff. So
yes,
let's. I'm going to bring up the long range graphics here. I don't know if you got to look at the 10 millibar today, or any time in the last
well,
day or so.
no, but the fact that that it split and then it resplit, is that basically what has taken place?
Well, it splits. Well, let me show you what happens. Let me just bring it up to the screen here. If it's going to let me, can you let me, please? Thank you. Technology, Joe, technology. Now, why is it not there? Oh, it's just being evil. No, that's not it. No, that's not it. Hold on a second.
While you're doing that, I'll make the noises like the old fax machine used to make.
There we go. That's it. No, there's so yeah. So there were actually 2 splits that occur. So on the screen right now, here's the first one that's the end of this week. It splits, but then it just gets reabsorbed by the polar vortex. But then there's another stratospheric warming that goes on. You see those brown areas that move around the vortex when it's on the shores of Siberia, comes around and splits a second time. And it's the second split that's actually really impressive. That upper low is going to last for a while, I think.
Yeah.
And so I think what's happening is the first split. Usually, when we start to see these, when we see these splits like this, it takes about a week or two to work its way into the bottom of the atmosphere. But I think that first split that happens very late this week. It starts. Today's Wednesday. I keep saying late this week. We're talking tomorrow, and it starts tomorrow, and for Friday. So I think that first split initiates the building. If you look up at the top center, you're going to see pressures rising across Greenland and going
Right.
into northern Canada. The whole Arctic region has above normal pressures, and it goes also back to the big ridge that's in the Gulf of Alaska and over the Aleutians. Meanwhile, look at the troughing that results out of this in the eastern. And remember when we showed that 384 hour back last week that had the whole country just underneath this deep upper low in Canada. Well, it's not that far off here, Joe. Look at the extent of how much of that cold air, and this is definitely a blocky looking scenario. And by the way, I also went from day 7 to day 16, showing the temperature anomalies. I mean, look at that. That is well. I know you're on a delay, but you'll see it in a minute. But that is an extensive. Virtually the whole country, except for the Southwest, is significantly below normal. And I think we should. I want to point out too that when we're talking about now the middle of March, you're going to have at least anomalies of 15 or more degrees below normal in order to get an atmosphere cold enough if you're looking for one last snow event. But I certainly think that if this winds up verifying that you're going to have plenty of cold air around, and it may stick around beyond the 18th at least for a little while.
I agree with you. In fact, the Climate Prediction Center has been headlining very, very cold weather in the western United States. And you just know that that cold, dense air eventually is going to, if I may use the term ooze, if you will, slowly eastward into our neck of the woods during the latter part of next week, certainly. And from what we're seeing, Joe, on all the models, that certainly looks like the case.
Right. And now whether something comes out of that, because nothing says it can't just be cold and dry. Here's a close-up look. This is starting next Thursday, and you see all that below normal temperatures there across the Great Lakes, back through the plains, all the way down into Texas, and then it gradually just spreads into the eastern part of the United States around the 12th and 13th. So that would be behind some kind of system that the models are showing for late next week, and the cold just gets reinforced because you get this vortex that forms in Hudson Bay. Those anomalies, by the way, are minus 15 to minus 20 that you're seeing around the 16th, 17th, and 18th of March in the Northeast, and also down in Texas, in Kansas. I mean, this is, and even up in further north, up into the Dakota. So this is a very, very cold-looking upper air that is setting up. It'll probably be the last gasp, I think, before we evolve into whatever we're going to evolve into.
It seems like everything that is in the excuse me, everything that's in the cold air bucket, if you will, up in northern and central Canada, is going to come spilling out in the next couple of weeks. And yeah, after that, the bucket is pretty much empty. In the time frame that it'll be needing to replenish, we'll probably be moving into the new month of April. And not to say that we can't have cold and snow in April, but still, it looks like a lot of that is going to be pouring in here in the middle and latter part of March. So enjoy. I hope you enjoyed today. Today was a lovely day with temperatures above normal, and as I said, we may see 60s here, depending upon the placement of a warm front on Sunday. But don't get too used to that, folks, because it looks like we're going to be in line for more wintry weather before this is as Yogi said, it ain't over till it's over, and it
Right.
ain't over yet.
No, it's not. Okay, so here's tonight's weather system. It's just basically a cold front with a little low on it. In the colder air that's in upstate New York and in central and northern New England. You'll see a little bit of snow, but I mean, we're talking about 6 hour frames here. So this will last all of about 3 or 4 hours if you happen to be in it. And on the southern end of it, maybe a few rain showers, and then they go out. And then, of course, the colder air comes in with the next high. That settles in on Friday. It'll be right overhead along the coast on Friday. And then going forward into the weekend, this next storm system that's coming out of Colorado, and you see it there on Saturday, early Saturday morning, that 999 low. Not a whole lot of moisture on the west side, and there's some. I mean, there will be some snow from that. That low is somewhat cut off from Gulf of Mexico moisture. That's why you don't really see a lot happening down in Missouri or Arkansas. It's just a very narrow line of showers that are running ahead of this low. There might even be a thunderstorm there in southern Wisconsin on Saturday. And into eastern Iowa as the low goes by, but it's so far west, and the warm front actually, which was shown to try to set up down near Virginia, is actually going to be setting up to our north. So I agree with you. The weekend, Saturday, doesn't really look all that bad at this point. I was kind of worried about a southeast wind and
Yeah,
an onshore flow and a lot of clouds. Now I'm
right.
thinking, you know what? It may be no worse than partly sunny for a good chunk of the day. And then Sunday, that's the day with the front coming through. And yeah, I mean, there's a strong southwest flow. Instead of being, say, maybe the 60s, I was thinking would stop somewhere in southern New Jersey, southern Pennsylvania. Now I'm thinking it probably could make it all the way up to New York City or even up into southern New England. And then the low goes out with all of that. But there's a second system that comes out. This one is more important. The one for Monday. This one actually does have the Gulf of Mexico a bit open, and you see a low there that's in southern Indiana and southern Ohio that runs east into east northeast up into western New York. Kind of looks like what we went through not too recently. Was it last week? With that system, and that goes up to the northeast, and you see the low that's sitting. But there's no cold air ahead of it, so we're not looking at freezing rain or anything like that. But here we go with the low running up into western New York. You see the snow that's on the northern side of it. There'll probably be some snow well up into upstate New York and northern New England. And then it's going to turn colder again after that. And the GFS in particular, I didn't look at the European closely, but this run of the GFS actually got quite creative. This will be Saturday, the 12th of March, with a cold high building over uh, just north of Lake of Sault Ste. Marie, wedged into eastern Canada, and a low that moves up from Georgia off the mid-Atlantic coast to 40 and 70, which we all know is that benchmark spot. But again, this may not be there on the next one run. We had the models showing something for this past Sunday that wound up being a big nothing as it moved off the southeast coast and went out straight east northeast. So I wouldn't put too much faith in this, but I do feel strongly about I'm feeling stronger. I don't say strongly, Joe, but I'm feeling a bit stronger on the idea that these polar vortex splits are going to are going to be you know are going to set off a change in the pattern to a cold one for the mid part of the month, and then we'll see how long it lasts and whether it bears any fruit for snow lovers.
Well, you have in your library, you probably have the time when we had that split in the polar vortex back at the end of January, early February. No, excuse me,
That
at the
happened
end of February in
it
2018.
yeah,
2018.
it was around the split in the vortex, if I remember correctly, occurred right around like February 19th, 20th, and it took about 10 days to really show its to play down to the bottom of the atmosphere, and we set up with those four nor'easters because we had off the wall blocking and off the wall negative P and A, and an off the wall negative East Pacific oscillation, which was which was the one that the snow lovers was really the one that cinched it all with regards to the second, third, and fourth systems, which were solid, and certainly the fourth one, which was a very much a solid snow producer. So yeah, those splits are important, but they do take time to work their way through.
But what I'm saying is that if you could look back and see what the upper air, the 10 millibar, looked like back in 2018, and make comparisons, you could stop the tape or stop the recording and
Right.
then look at what's going on right now. You can maybe make a judgment call. It's basically it's the same time of the year. I'm not saying that maybe you can make a forecast that includes 3 or 4 nor'easters in the span of 20 or 30 days,
Yeah.
but you just to make comparisons,
Right.
make like
No,
an analog analysis.
I think the big difference is going to be the fact that well, during that stretch, that 2 week stretch of March, actually it was 3 weeks. We had 5 and 6 standard deviations negative on all of the teleconnections. They were so stretched to the extreme that you knew that they were going to that they were going to produce something big somewhere, and they wound up producing 4 big systems. Each one got strong. The first one was strong enough, and each one got stronger than the prior one. I don't think we're going to have off-the-wall teleconnections this time around, but uh, we will. I still think it could be dynamic enough down the road that we get one last hurrah for snow lovers, one last hurrah.
We'll see.
We'll see.
We shall see. March 11th to the 14th, a very special or auspicious anniversary, because that is the anniversary of the blizzard of '88, and it's also the anniversary of the superstorm. Everybody talks about Superstorm Sandy, but before Sandy came along, there was a storm that actually was called a superstorm. In fact, even the storm of the century, and that was the storm in March of 1993, which you and I both covered for
Right.
News 12 Long Island. I remember that
Yes.
very well.
Yes. That was actually down here. That was a big. People still talk about that storm that were around
Yeah,
back in 1993
that was a
because
blizzard.
yeah, because there was upwards of at where I am at 2200 feet, there was every bit of 20 inches here, and even higher
Wow.
amounts at some of the mountains. So Atlanta got a big snowfall out of that too, but yeah, that was a big deal around here. It caused was a lot of tree damage apparently too. So um, yeah, but we're not predicting a superstorm here. We're just going back in time.
We just want something. We just want something to keep us awake
Yeah.
for because this is like, as Alan Casper used to say, it's boring for me, and when it's boring for me, it's great for all of you who are watching. And it was absolutely true, because when we don't have anything to talk about, that usually refers to quiet weather, nice weather, and that's exactly what we have right now. If you want to allow me to share something, I'd like to share
Yeah.
a something with everybody. Those of you, especially who live in the metropolitan New York area,
La la la.
WNEW. No, well, it doesn't have anything to do with WNEW.
Go ahead.
WNEW doesn't exist anymore.
It's all yours,
All
Joe.
right. So tomorrow night, those of you who are close to your TV between 5:30 and 6 o'clock, Channel 2 here in New York is going to be doing a half-hour special on weather.
Oh,
They
hold
have
on,
recently
Joe. Just a
branded.
second. Okay. I did change the screen. I had a senior moment there. I didn't know if I changed the screen. Go ahead. You're fine. I'm sorry to interrupt.
All right. No. Channel 2 is, if you've been watching them in the last couple of weeks, they're branding their weather forecast now as First Alert Weather. First Alert. And I thought that was interesting. Renata and I were watching, I don't know what program we were watching last Wednesday night. It was about 10:30, and the phone rings, and who's on the phone calling but Lonnie Quinn? And Lonnie says to me that this week, March the 3rd, tomorrow, they're going to do this half-hour show. All the weathercasters, they have 4 of them at Channel 2, have a segment that they have to produce talking about weather, New York weather, or weather in general, or whatever. And he's going to be at Belvedere Castle. Now, you see here this picture. Here I am with Lonnie. He asked if I would be interested in coming down to Central Park to be with him and talk about the weather observations that have been made, historic weather observations at Central Park. And when you're retired or don't have anything much to do, I said, "Oh, well, that sounds interesting. Yeah, why not?" I drove down to Manhattan and parked the car, put it in a garage, took a walk over to Central Park, and we spent about an hour together. Now, behind us, you see in that area that's fenced in, that is the area where the weather instrumentation is. That's where, when you hear like 3 o'clock right now at Central Park, it's 34 degrees, humidity 70. All of that weather equipment is caged in, so to speak. And back in the 70s, they had a real problem because kids would break into the area where the instruments were, and they would destroy them. They would break them, and actually the castle itself, Belvedere Castle, which had been used for weather observations going back to 1919, that was beginning to get rather run down and dilapidated by the 1970s. Then in 1982, the Central Park Conservancy came along. They formed the Central Park Conservancy. They were able to get some money, and the first thing they did was they used some of the money to refurbish the castle, get new equipment, put the fence around the equipment so that nobody would be able to break in and destroy them like they had been doing. And so anyway, there we are, together talking about this, and also there's the castle. You can actually go to the castle. You can actually go inside and look around and go up to the top. Beautiful view up here on the terrace. I mean, you could look north toward Harlem and see the Great Lawn in Central Park, and you can also look south and see the Sheep Meadow. And you get probably some of the nicest views of Central Park from right here at the castle. And you could, like I said, it's free. You could just walk right in and walk right up. It's only about a 6 or 7 minute walk from where we were at Central Park West. You go into the entrance at 81st Street, and there's the castle. And another view here of Lonnie, his producer, Stephanie, and myself. And this is when Lonnie was apparently Lonnie wanted me to come. The powers that be were kind of like, well, who is this guy? I mean, is he with the
Who
weather service?
is
Does he
this
know our
guy?
stuff?
Oh
Yeah, I mean,
my
who is Joe Rayo?
God. Oh
You know,
God.
well, this woman here, Stephanie, she said, well, I mean, does he know his stuff? Does he know anything about weather and anything? And so this was at the point, Renato was with me. This was at the point where in the middle of our piece, Lonnie just stopped everything and told Stephanie, and you could see the look on her face, like, didn't I tell you about this guy? Didn't I tell you? He knows his stuff. He's got a Rolodex in his head. He knows everything about weather. And I'm there just like smiling at this. So anyway, so we were out there for an hour. You, Joe, know, I mean, 99% of what we filmed is going to end up on the floor, on the edit room floor. I don't know whether or not I'm going to be on tomorrow in this half-hour show for 5 seconds or 5 minutes. But in any case, I'm telling people, tune in, watch, don't blink, because you may miss me. And maybe again, you won't miss me. But I was flattered to death that Lonnie thought enough for me to, come on down and join him for his segment on this show. And I might also add, he was very disappointed because he said, darn, it's too bad that your partner, Joe Chiaffi, is in Georgia, because we would have loved to have the two of you together to talk about the weather. And
Well, Joe,
you
you didn't know this, but that we were in intense. I was in intense negotiations. My people were with management there. Then they I don't think I asked for very much. I mean, I asked to be flown up first class. I asked to be chauffeured over from the airport. I asked to be put up at the most expensive hotel. But those are just minor things. I mean, I didn't see why. They couldn't meet my requirements. But you know what? Some people just they won't. Some people just refuse to bend their backs for quality, and we'll just leave it at that.
Well,
Did you
like
give
I
him?
said,
Did
we'll
you
see
give
how
him my
this.
message?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good.
And God only knows if whenever he gets back down to Georgia, but if he does, he'll be knocking. Somebody's knocking. Will you let him in?
Yes.
Lord, it's the devil. Will you look at him?
Yes. Oh
Tom
God.
Contino, what time again? It's 5:30, 5:30 to 6 o'clock.
Eastern
The
time,
First Alert
Tom.
Weather Show.
Eastern time.
Eastern time.
Not
Eastern time.
not Greenwich Mean Time. You know, not Azerbaijani
And
time. It's Eastern time. Um,
and thank you to the chairman for hitting super chats and making a boring weather pattern interesting. We do our best, Scott, and appreciate it. And congrats, Joe, on the show. We'll see, and we'll look forward to it again. Don't blink, because God only knows again how long I'm gonna. Or what's going to happen? One of two things is going to happen here tomorrow. Either I'm going to be on for like 5 seconds or 10 seconds, or something is going to happen in. And in fact, the more I think about this, the more it's likely to happen tomorrow. Something is going to happen in the Ukraine.
this just
Biden will
in.
make a speech, or somebody make
Yeah.
a.
This
Exactly.
just in.
I'm sitting there waiting. It's like it'll be like that episode of All in the Family where Archie is going to be on Walter Cronkite's news,
Right.
and the moment that he appears, Dan Rather appears, and Nixon makes a speech. That could happen tomorrow. That could very well happen.
That would be funny. Well, we'll.
I don't think it would be funny.
All right,
Well,
it wouldn't be
We'll
funny.
see.
Okay.
No,
Speaking of the
no.
chairman, who we hope.
And don't, by the way, don't, like on that Dick Van Dyke episode. There was an episode of Dick Van Dyke where the next door neighbor Millie was told that Rob was going to produce or direct an entire Alan Brady show, and what happened was that she wrote a letter to Alan Brady telling him how wonderful the show was and how great it was, and mailed it. And then when the show was supposed to go on, this was in advance of the show was supposed to go on, it got preempted and was never seen. And like Dick Van Dyke's like, you wrote a letter about how great the show was, and the show wasn't even seen yet. So don't write a letter. Don't write any letters to the news director at Channel 2 until at least the show is over. And then if you have something to write about or say about the show and the way it landed, then you could do that. But don't do that before the show, because, again, I might get preempted by Biden or by Nancy Pelosi or something, and then nobody's going to see the show.
I promise you, Joseph, I will not write any letter. Okay. Speaking
Yes.
of the chairman, we hope that that Mother Briller is doing well, and he sent Briller Jeopardy tonight, which centers around Central New York City in March. So we'll run through these really quick, Joe. Are you ready?
Yes.
The highest and lowest temperatures in New York City in March. And of course, we're referring to Central Park.
I'll bet you in March it got to 80 at one point. I'll say 82 for the highest, and the lowest, of course, the blizzard of 1888 had temperatures of like 4 degrees. So I don't know the exact number, but I think we have a spread of something like 4 degrees for the lowest, and the highest temperature ever, something like in the low 80s, like 82.
86 was the high in 1998, which I remember.
Okay.
And 3 was the low in 1872. I believe the low for the blizzard of 88 was 4. So it touched the record low, the all-time record low of 3 set back in 1872. What was the most snow ever to fall in the entire month of March?
I'll say 29 inches.
Close, 30.5 in the year.
Oh, I can't. Was it 1888?
No.
No, it wasn't.
No, but it does have an.
It wasn't 1888.
No, but it has an 18 handle on it.
Oh, give me a break. 1882.
1896.
I can't believe that they got. You said the most in March was 30 inches. In that one storm in 1888, they got 21 inches, and they still didn't manage to break that or tie that 30-inch record. That's crazy.
It happens. And by the way, if anybody ever looks at the snow records for New York City in that stretch during the 1880s, in particular the 1880s. That was a very cold and very snowy 10-year period. How many snowstorms of at least a foot have occurred in the month of March?
Oh, well, most of the ones in recent years have been in January and February. I don't think we've had anything like that comparable in my memory. I don't think we've had anything like that in March. So I'm going to say 1888, 2,
There were four. There's only been four.
4.
And by the way, that the Ash Wednesday storm, the Ash Wednesday storm is not included in this. But
Right.
also, it should be noted that, especially after the very beginning of March, that it's quite common for areas surrounding New York City probably have gotten many more 1 foot snowstorms in that long 100 and whatever it is 60-year period. But in the city itself, especially now with the urbanization and everything else, it's really kind of hard to do double digit amounts. 1888, 1914, 1941, 1960. The superstorm of 1993 produced 10.6 inches. I think if I'd be curious to see what the number is if you lowered the threshold down from 12 to 10. How many that would bring? How many inches of snow did Central Park receive in the blizzard of '88?
21, right?
That's
21
correct.
inches.
Since
Yeah.
1869, how many Marches have had no measurable snowfall? Zero. How many Marches have had no measurable snowfall?
Let me do a calculation here. So there have been 153 marches, and no snow,
Right.
0 snow.
Zero. Not even a trace. Just zero.
How about I'll take a guess. 16.
Oddly enough, only four. Okay, only
Really?
four. 1878, 1894, 1903, and 2012. So you went 109 years in between 1903 and 2012. Now, I'm sure there's a few years in there that had only a trace, but the question is how many had no measurable snowfall? Zero. Um,
Zero.
and that's it. So that was our final uh, question for the day. So we are all done.
We had a trace in 1988 in March, 2002, 0 in 2012, a trace in 1971. I just happen to, believe it or not, strange enough, I just remembered it now. Earlier, I actually wrote down some of this information. I wanted to see, we only had 2 inches of snow in February, and I wanted to see if there's any kind of correlation, if you by the numbers of how much snow fell the very next month. And there is no correlation. I mean, there's some years we've had 2 inches or less of snow, and we've had like 27 inches of snow in the following month of March. And other years there have been like 0 or trace or only a fraction of an inch. So you can't really say that the fact that we only had 2 inches in February means that we're not going to have much, if any, snow in March. It could very well be a big month, and we shall see what happens, especially as we get into the middle and the latter part of March.
Yeah, so let's see.
So we'll see.
Let's see what adventures the models take us over the next couple of days. In the meantime, thanks everybody for being here tonight. I hope you had a great day and hope you have a great night and a great tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow night for our Thursday night Joe and Joe Weather Show right here at 7:30 Eastern Time. So have a good one, and we will see you then. Nighty night, everybody.
See you later.
And